a Soviet potmaker who became a billionaire in Putin's Russia.
Money, money, damn it. Money!
The richest man of Armenian descent and the biggest developer in Moscow. A traitor who sold out his homeland for 30 pieces of Kremlin silver.
You don't know Panikovsky yet. Panikovsky will sell you all you back, and sell you again, but for a higher price.
A loyal herald of the Russian world's ideas and an obedient servant of Putin, doing what he can to bring Yerevan under Moscow's wing.
We will try to integrate major international companies into Armenia's economy. That will become the driving force. Psychologically, of course, it's easier for us with Russia, since we lived together for decades.
A man-kurd who challenged the Armenian authorities.
If the politicians simply cannot manage the situation, then we'll certainly get involved in our own way.
Enemy Ilham Aliyev, Azerbaijani.
The chances for a compromise with the terrorists in Karabakh are very shrinking.
Samvel Karapetyan is not just a businessman. He is the Armenian nouveau riche closest to the Kremlin, essentially a Putin agent whom the Tsar allowed to build his own business empire in Russia. A spot on the Russian Forbes list. Personal awards from Putin. A fortune worth several $billions. The Kremlin did everything to have its own Armenian puppet, a sort of Ukrainian Medvedchuk and Georgian Ivanishvili rolled into one.
The prominent Russian-Armenian billionaire, a significant figure, challenges Prime Minister Pashinyan. The recently arrested billionaire, Samvel Karapetyan, now promises to create a powerful new political force within Armenia.
A native of Tashir, Armenia, Samvel Karapetyan entered the heights of the cookware business. After graduating from Faculty of Mechanical Engineering at Yerevan Polytechnic Institute, future billionaire got job as technologist in 1986 and soon became director of kitchenware factory.
Karapetyan began his career in his hometown of Kalanino, Armenia, at a factory specializing in enamel products. He quickly rose from being the head of the technology department to becoming the owner.
An astonishing ascent from the university bench almost straight into the director's chair. A prodigy, Putin's supporters would say. Connections in the Armenian government, that's the reality.
That's a lot of money and a lot of trust, young man.
At the time of Samvel's first independent steps, his older brother Karen Karapetyan was working at the District Komsomol Committee and later became the head of the Armenian president's administration.
Where does power come from? Is it really about money? Even his brother says it's about money.
Samvel, like most of today's Russian oligarchs, made his first big capital in the early 90s during privatization. As the director, and with some family support in the corridors of power, he grabbed a factory for himself, soon renamed it Zenit, and turned it into a multi-purpose plant that produced tableware, textiles, and rubber for cars all at once.
He just quietly swiped it and walked away. That's what you call founded.
Over time, plundering his homeland wouldn't be enough for Karapetyan.
Not enough, you see. It just won't cut it.
Having made the right connections through business, Samvel packed his bags and set off to conquer Moscow. To start with, he settled not far from the White Stone City in Kaluga.
What a very grim city indeed. No girls, nobody plays cards. Yesterday, I stole a silver spoon at the tavern. No one even noticed. They figured it was never there in the first place.
Why Kaluga? First, Samvel had relatives in the city, and second, it was here he acquired his first notable company in Russia, Kaluga Glavasnab. On its foundation, Karapetyan would soon create the Tashir Group, named after the Armenian entrepreneur's hometown.
I truly want to make my name famous and immortal, indeed.
How?
Like this.
The people of Kaluga would learn that Samvel's vanity and greed knew no bounds. Thanks to Karapetyan's efforts, Kaluga turned into a branch of Armenia within Russia. Dozens of establishments dot the city, from shopping centers to restaurants and stores, all bearing the name Tashir. At a certain point, The locals rebelled against the expansion of the aggressive and enterprising Armenia. But for Samvel, the opinions and protests of the native residents didn't matter at all. Of course, unless it came from higher authorities. Samvel's main allies in building his own business empire within Russia were other influential members of the Armenian diaspora who had also sold out to the Kremlin.
The youth of Armenia must clearly understand that Nikol Pashinyan is a traitor to the Armenian people and is leading Armenia to complete destruction if he remains in power.
If you believe the Russian Forbes, Karapetyan's conquest of Moscow can be summed up like this: Russian patriots are outraged, while enterprising Armenians are on the rise.
Karapetyan bought his first plot in Moscow from one of the owners of Mikim's bank, Artur Arakelian. The most expensive property per square meter, Yerevan Plaza at Tolstoya, was started by the owner of Stenkum Group, Gennady Stepanyan. He managed to acquire the plot, while Karapetyan's companies built the complex and now manage it. The shopping center Europart, which is now part of Tasher, used to belong to businessman Ashet Azarian. Karapetyan entered Moscow City by agreeing to invest in and complete the project of Yerevan, the head of the Union of Armenians of Russia.
As Karapetyan strengthened his business position and rapidly climbed the Forbes list, his ties with the Kremlin also grew stronger. In the early 2000s, awards and medals rained down on the Armenian like a cornucopia. In 2003, Putin would present Karapetyan with a personalized watch. After that, there would be various honorary certificates from the Russian dictator, and the pinnacle of success, the recognition of Samvel as Russia's Man of the Year.
As long as braggarts live in this world, we must glorify our own fate.
Karapetyan's success stems from corrupt connections, behind-the-scenes deals, and grace, sometimes even black schemes. His enormous influence within the Armenian diaspora. In short, the perfect candidate with the right set of qualities to maintain the Kremlin's ties with Nagorno-Karabakh, and all this bypassing Armenia's official authorities.
The Prosecutor General's Office of Azerbaijan has put Yerevan, Samvel Karapetyan, and David Gostian on the international wanted list.
According to Ilham Aliyev, it was Karapetyan who, using his business, provided military and financial support to the pro-Russian enclave in the occupied Karabakh.
It was definitively established that the head of the Tasher group of companies, Samvel Karapetyan, who is widely known in Armenia as a prominent shadow businessman, as well as David Gostian and Yerevan, in order to illicitly supply the armed forces of the Republic of Armenia with various weapons, ammunition, explosives, and essential military equipment, meticulously organized extensive smuggling operations by air in direct violation of the stringent requirements of the Customs Convention and the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe.
Samvel Karapetyan is an unprincipled, unique servant of Putin. To please the Russian Tsar, this puppet fell out with authorities in Azerbaijan and his native Armenia.
But it's better to be in a prison camp barrack at the Listasek than in a suit from Fox on the parade ground.
But in the opinion of the greedy Karapetyan, the reputation of a vile and treacherous enemy in Azerbaijan and a Judas in Armenia was worth it. Samvel's indulgence is his direct contact with Putin, business cooperation with Gazprom, and the status of the largest developer in Moscow during Sobyanin's era. Karapetyan didn't just become fabulously rich, he became one of the most influential people in Eritrea. Moreover, both he and his family aren't shy about bragging about it publicly.
I'm the king of the world.
In September 2017, even the Russian capital, accustomed to luxury, was stunned by the wedding of Samvel's youngest son. Even Arab sheiks would envy the wedding of 23-year-old Sarkis and his 25-year-old bride, Salome Ketzerashvili, a Georgian. Get ready to start counting on your fingers. For Samvel's son's wedding, they hired all the top stars: Philip Kirkorov, Vera Brezhneva, Grigory Lips, Sofia Rotaru, Kolya Baskov, Sergei Shnurov, and the band Leningrad, and also Basta, Timati, Dima Bilan, Valery Maladze, Irina Allegorova, and Stas Mikhailov.
I won't allow you to sing songs about the Tsar. They've let loose without me. What repertoire do you have?
And for dessert, a few songs from the then Russian prima donna Alla Pugacheva and the popular American group Maroon 5.
We need to sing something popular, something modern. How is that? Tilly Tilly, Tilly Tilly.
In addition to the list of artists, Muscovites were shocked by the wedding cake, which was 6 meters high. It was created by the personal chef of the Prince of Kuwait himself. But the cherry on top of the Karapetyan's ostentatious celebration of life, the bride wore a diamond tiara that actress Carey Mulligan, DiCaprio's love interest, wore in the film The Great Gatsby. The price of this precious trinket? Just $200,000.
For me, very little is impossible.
Estimates suggest the Armenian tycoon spent $3 million on his offspring's wedding. One guest was Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov. At this gathering of arrogance and bravado, Putin's jester even gave a toast.
You look so much like your father. Your father paved the way for you with his success. Don't let us down. Follow this path.
Let's listen to Peskov, then return to the father's path. After capitulation of Karabakh separatists to Azerbaijan, Karapetyan, on Kremlin's orders, shifted focus from confronting Baku to fighting his Yerevan, specifically Armenian opponent of Kremlin, current Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan.
Over the past 2 full years, the CSTO member country Armenia has been subjected to aggression by Azerbaijan at least 3 distinct times. It's truly and indeed very discouraging that Armenia's membership in the CSTO did not effectively deter Azerbaijan from taking these significant and repeated aggressive actions.
When Russian peacekeepers tragically die there, they are sacrificing their lives for those very same Armenians, the ones whom you, the so-called Armenians with last names unequivocally ending in yen, led by your own controversial leader Pashinyan, have completely and utterly betrayed in the most profound and unforgivable way.
What kind of Judas is this, and what kind of scumbag?
The task of Putin's Armenian puppet is to repeat the Georgian scenario, when, thanks to the efforts of Kremlin oligarch Ivanishvili, Tbilisi returned to Moscow's embrace, and all the reforms, the fight against corruption, and Georgia's pro-Western course during Saakashvili's time were wiped out. And the first thing Putin's tame Armenian needs to do is remove Nikol Pashinyan from his path. The conflict between the Armenian Apostolic Church and the Prime Minister, provoked by the Kremlin, is a perfect opportunity.
A small group, having forgotten the 1,000-year history of the Armenian Church, has attacked the sacred heritage of the Armenian people. I am always with the people. If the politicians fail to make an impact, then we will participate in our own way.
But in Yerevan, things didn't go so smoothly for Putin's overconfident puppet. Back home, Karapetyan was reminded that here, he doesn't have the protection of the bunker czar. And a day later, the billionaire was detained. He was detained and hit where it hurt most, his money. One of his main assets and levers of influence over the Republic, the company Electric Networks of Armenia, was nationalized.
Police officers foiled a large-scale and sinister plan by the criminal oligarchic clergy to destabilize the situation in the Republic of Armenia and seize power.
In response to the arrest of its agent, the Kremlin began to take revenge and unleashed all its attack dogs on Pashinyan. As usual, Putin's lapdog media were the first to jump into the fray.
They're accusing Samvel Karapetyan there for absolutely no reason and threw him in jail without any grounds. They're making up a trial in the worst traditions of 1937. Basically, they're just shamelessly taking away property, including that of the Russian state, and even dared to accuse the Russian state of financing a conspiracy. Says who? A man who betrayed all the interests of the new, centuries old.
Right now in Armenia, they are trying to arrest the true champion of all Armenians, Samvel Karapetyan. He got all excited like an immortal. Be careful that you don't end up with something really nasty in your mouth.
Even those deeply undercover Kremlin agents, hiding behind the mask of liberals, have joined the ranks of the seasoned, bile-spewing propagandists.
I know Samvel Karapetyan very well. I consider him an outstanding businessman and a great philanthropist. And what happened is a complete outrage. So it turns out that in Armenia, whenever they realize that some Armenian has the resources, the desire, and the ability to influence what's happening in the country, he immediately becomes the target of a criminal case.
There hasn't been such unanimity in the swamps for a long time. Karapetyan's money and Putin's favor have dredged up all the filth from the bottom. And besides the media prostitutes, almost all Russian clowns and jesters joined in singing Samvel's praises.
And then trouble struck my friend. My good friend Samvel Karapetyan, who openly voiced his serious concerns regarding the persecution of members of the ancient church, the Armenian Apostolic Church. And now our friend has been thrown into the dungeons on completely absurd and fabricated charges. And since this concerns the church, I want to remind Prime Minister Pashinyan of one of the 10 commandments: do not bear false witness against your neighbor.
The damp prison walls have not cooled Karapetyan's passionate love for Putin. And Samvel has officially announced his intention to enter politics and create a new political force.
That's because you fear the law less than you fear your gangster buddies.
Just like in Georgia back in the day, Karapetyan's money and connections provide him with significant support in Armenian society. Tens of thousands of deceived Armenians are ready to sell their future for small gains in the present. The story of their neighbors has taught them nothing, and they take to the streets of Yerevan in support of a traitor and a Kremlin billionaire. On the side of Karapetyan's money and Moscow's favor, Russian FSB agents and Kazakhs have also shown up. The corrupt and greedy head of the Russian diocese of the Armenian Apostolic Church, Archbishop Ezras, publicly prayed for Samvel before the rally in support of the oligarch. Moscow wants a revanche in Yerevan. But having lost its army and influence in Ukraine, the toothless old man in the Kremlin can no longer solve his problems by force.
Well, you should hit back at him. I would certainly hit back, but in a completely different way.
And that's why they act in a sneaky, underhanded way. The last thing the bunker coward has left are his obedient puppet marionettes scattered along the borders of his crumbling empire. But their capabilities shouldn't be underestimated. Both Georgia and Ukraine and Crimea and Donbass have already learned this the hard way. Samvel Karapetyan is a real threat to the current government and to the entire people of Armenia. Maybe Pashinyan should remember the well-known principle, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Just go ahead and hand the oligarch traitor over to Ilham Aliyev. Such a sacrifice of Putin's puppet would solve an internal problem and serve to bring together two of Putin's enemies, Nikol Pashinyan and Ilham Aliyev, politically. The formidable Recep Erdogan will seal this alliance, and the pale moth will be forced to crawl back into his bunker.
I once had the distinct and memorable opportunity to answer a significant question from a representative of Ukraine at an important event a few years ago, indeed. And the question was more or less the same. And my answer, it won't differ from what I said back then, and I think it resonates with the aspirations of the Ukrainian people. Never agree to occupation. That's the main advice. That's what we did.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.